Hello, everyone. I believe we are now live on air. Um, I have with me Yayati and Suveer for, I think this is the very first time I've done this. I've done this for other groups, but it's the first time I've ever done it for the Powerful Men's group where I'll be coaching a couple of you guys live. Like I said, this time it's Yayati and Sue. I don't know if you guys want to say hello.
Hello.
Hi everyone.
Cool, great that you guys could join us. So, Um, I know that you both kind of commented on the group and said you were interested in getting some coaching around a couple of different topics. So I know Sue, unless you decided to randomly change at the last minute, you wanted some coaching around career and specifically what to do now that you've come to the end of your education. And Yati, I know you wanted some conversation around kind of completely different, which was around um, your finding and getting closer to your wisdom, I believe.
Yes.
Cool, and nice to finally meet. I think it's the first time we've spoken. I've spoken to Sue before, but do you want to be called Sue or Suveer?
Sue is fine. Sue is fine.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, and hi Niels. Niels saying hi on the chat function on the side. Hello. I'm just going to mute you, Yayati. Hi Bjorna, nice to see you. Glad to have you with us. Um, so Sue, it's just you and I. You know, we're live in front of the whole universe. It's not really. We've not got the whole universe signed to this webinar, but do you want to just start and maybe just say a little bit about um, what you'd like coaching on today?
Well, my situation's kind of, I guess, typical in many sense. So, I was in school. I recently finished. I'm just waiting for the graduation ceremony. It was all rainbows and sunshine in school. Everything was going well. And now, since I'm officially done school, now real life starts, right? So I'm looking for work. I'm looking for like a full-time job. Before school, I was doing security, general labor. Right now during school, I was working as a part-time janitor. And now since I'm done school and since that's great and done with, I'm thinking, what do I do now? Like, where do I go? Like, do I go back to security? Do I go back to like general labor? Do I need to make this stupid janitor job full time in order to like, pay off my credit card bills and, because I graduated, so I'm like, yeah, everything's fun in school, right? Because you don't really think about the future. It's like, yeah, I'll get a job eventually, but then I'm done school now. And usually my field of work is social service work, but, there's a lot of nepotism. So if you know people, then you can easily get in. But if you don't know anyone, like, I mean, there's so many options too, but like my parents are very like, especially my mom, she really wants me to like stay in my field because that's what she ended up paying for, right? She ended up paying for a lot of my education. So I'm thinking, do I go back to security, make that full time, and get like whatever? Because I hated security. It was just, you sit there for 12 hours doing nothing. I used to be a bouncer and it was pretty dangerous and toxic. So I was thinking, do I need to go back to that? Because I don't want to go backwards. Because I went to school, I loved it. I loved what I did. I worked in a homeless shelter, did all that stuff as our intern. I loved it. Now I'm done school, and I'm like, I'm looking for a full-time job. I mean, I can go back to like security and all that stupid ass work, or like I really want to work in my field, but do I just put that status aside? Because my mom really wants me to stay in that field, but I'm like, like I can just get a job and get like full-time hours and just use that money to survive and go on a little vacation or something. I don't know, do something average or so basically I'm done school and I'm trying to figure out what to do. That's I can go on for hours, but that's basically it.
So, what would you like? You've talked about your mom wants you to stay in the field that you study. You talked about having other jobs, but you don't really enjoy them. So, what would you do if you could get the job? So, forget that you think there's nepotism or anything else. What job would you love to do?
I mean, I would love to stay in the helping field because when I'm in that area or that field of work, it's just that's where my passion really ignites it. It really gets going. Like I do a lot of things. I link a lot of agencies together. Like I find a lot of my creativeness comes out, which never really does. I'm like really able to help people in like practical sense. So like my field of work is great, but a lot of times, they need like your master's degree and all that stuff, and I have all these requirements that just looking at the job postings is pretty hard. And I mean, my field of work really gets me going. It's really like thing, but it's really hard to get into also. Um, or but that's ideally that would be nice. But after talking to a lot of business guys, they just like, they're all about investing. So they don't look at it that way. They just don't really care. They just want you to get a job and kind of start making that money. So, I mean,
Who
it's
wants you to
just,
start a job and get a money? Who are
uh,
these business?
well, I mean, they don't want me, they're not directly telling me, but I see that like, money is basically what's the reason behind all this. But it's just, I worked from like low level factory work to like, a bit above security, and then, now I went to school. So either like since I'm done school, either I go a step backwards and then go back to security, and then or go to a general labor job, which I really cannot do. It's just I don't want to take a step backwards. So I'm looking at, like what's the next step
So
kind
we
of.
keep talking about backwards. What is a step forward?
Um, getting a job that I get to help people,
Mm.
getting that job where I can be in the office, like I'm already imagining it while I like, I have clients coming in and like I sit down with them and talk to them and find out what I can do. So like either working in a homeless shelter or something like that. Like I used to,
And you said that there's a lot of nepotism in that area, and that you can only get a job if you already know people.
yeah,
Is
you
that
can
true?
like the internship that I did at the homeless shelter, you can only get interviewed if someone refers you to them. So if you know someone there, then that's the only way they can refer you. So, yeah, that's. I mean, ideally, I can go back to security or do something stupid like that, but it just. I really want to. Like, I went to school for it. Like, I could have not gone to school and stayed in security, but since I went to school, I want to, really expand my
So
career.
can I just stay on the helping field, because I just want to kind of dig on that a bit more, because you seem to be jumping back to like all of a sudden doing security and manual work, and it sounds like you really want to do helping work, in the field that you studied in.
Hmm.
And you said one homeless shelter, you can't get an interview unless you're referred. But
Yeah.
is that true of every single homeless shelter in your city?
No, no, it's not. But I just thought like they're like a close community. Like even though they're geographically far, it's a close like small community basically. So like everyone knows everyone because they all work together. So
Right, and is there something, would you be a bad employee for them?
no, no, I didn't. No, I will not. I definitely will be an asset. But
Right, and
uh,
have you applied to any places that don't require you to be referred?
I mean, I looked around, but I haven't actually taken the step to apply yet. Because there was this internship that I did, and I had to actually leave because there were like a lot of dangerous situations that were unethical. Like I was almost pricked by like needles, and they were doing a lot of unethical things on that shelter that my school said, okay, you cannot be there no more. So I had to leave, and I thought I left a bad impression. But they left, they went back and talked to them. They said I was a great student and everything. So I just thought since I had to leave on those terms, I thought, okay, those are my chances totally gone. But I haven't actually applied yet, so I don't know. It's just all in my head, I guess.
Right. So if we split this call kind of half between yourself and Yayati, we've got about 20 minutes. What would be really helpful for you out of these 20 minutes?
I just need some clarity because I got a lot of things on my mind because I just finished school and like all those rainbows and sunshines are gone. So I gotta figure out like, I'm 27 years old. I'm fucking old now, right? Like I'm old age now. So I gotta start like buckling down and really, get this career thing settled so I can start living my life. So,
I'm. Do you mind if I suggest a few things like that I see in terms of what you've been saying.
Sure.
Um, it's really interesting. You're using very evocative language. School was sunshine and rainbows. Like, is that true, or is that just a perception?
I mean, the stuff that we were learning, it's something that I really related to. All right. So
Right. And right now in the real world, is it possible that you can go and help people?
I really could. I can definitely be a volunteer and really get my name out there, but it's just so hard when you're not getting paid for it and you still got bills to pay and you got credit card bills to pay and all that stuff. It's just really hard when you don't really have an income.
Right.
Uh,
And it's really easy not to get paid when you don't apply for work.
yes, you're right.
Like, I'm just curious, like, do you see that? Like, you're saying it's difficult to get a job, but I can tell you what will guarantee you not to get a job, and that is not applying.
Yeah, you're right. It's just a lot of the job postings that I saw, they usually are like, because I just have a college diploma, right? So that's just my education, not like a university degree like that. So yeah, you're right. I
Do you,
didn't
do you
reply, and
need a
I'm
university
thinking I'm
degree to
not gonna
do these
get it.
jobs?
Not most of them. There are some that you don't need that. So
Right. So that's like saying, I'm not going to apply to this job to be, I don't know, a cook or a chef because I can't fly a plane. Like, if it's not required, what difference does it make?
yeah, I mean, like they said, looking for a job is a job in itself. So I guess uh, you make it sound so simple, which it is. It's just me just applying. All right, simple, simple.
Well, I'm curious, what's stopping you, for example, tomorrow, spending the full day like actually applying for jobs? Like, is it because there might be something that I don't see? I'm not saying I'm right, but you know, right now I can't see what the issue is.
Just a lot of self-doubt.
Do you need to
To,
fix that before you apply?
I mean, it's always been there. Every time I kind of hesitate, I just start questioning myself, and then I just don't do it. Yeah, it's just not like it's like how you do anything is how you do everything. So it's not just in this field. Like I used to be a bad thing in a lot of other things in my life. So yeah, I mean, if it was to relate to women, there was this girl. She was looking at me. She really wanted me. I hesitated. I self-doubt. I walked away. Didn't do anything, and then it turned out that she really liked me, but I never took the action because I was too much in my head. So
Is
I guess
self-doubt a fixed thing for you?
a fixed thing.
Like, do you sometimes have self-doubt and sometimes you don't?
I mean, after your help and definitely learning about three principles, whenever I get anxious and overthinking, I kind of calm myself down and catch myself in order to get that out of my head, and then like it's like a non-stop practice where I gotta catch myself and then calm down and then I take the action kind of thing. So it's a progression. It's getting better than it was before. So
Because it sounds like, if you don't mind me saying, the way you're talking about self-doubt is like you're missing a limb. Like, it's a fixed thing. Like, oh, I can't apply for jobs because I have this self-doubt, right? And it's like saying I can't apply to I don't know, I can't apply to be a boxer because I don't have any arms. There's nothing I can do about it. I don't have any arms. It's like I can't apply for jobs. I've got self-doubt. What do you want me to do?
yeah, you're right. It does make it sound like it's my handicap that's permanently there. Yeah, that's true. So what do I do about it?
Apply for jobs.
About the self-doubt, I guess.
Nothing. Why would you need to do anything about your self-doubt? That's like saying, I think I have no arms. I know I do have arms, but I think I have no arms. What do I do about it? Just use your arms. Like,
Yep.
there is nobody that I know in the world who has never had self-doubt. And if you had to fix self-doubt before you took action, like if that was true, you had to get over self-doubt before you took action, nothing would get done. Because so many people, even successful people who it's not like they're doing something for the first time. So many people doubt themselves. So many people have nerves. So many entertainers, before they go out on stage, comedians and all the rest of it, they have that momentary self-doubt, like, oh, this is going to go terribly. But they don't. They still go on stage and they still perform.
Hmm.
You know, the self-doubt looks like to you that it means that you can't go and apply for jobs, but that's simply not the case.
Yeah, you're right. I always think back to like, approaching girls and how in that moment I can think a million things about everything that, and I even project it onto the other person even though I never talked to them. It's like, oh, they're not gonna be good for the future, they're not right for me and all that stuff. So it sometimes can get really negative and I can project it onto the other person too. So just something else in my mind. But yeah, definitely. Like, I take the self-doubt and turn it around and then put it on the outside things and make that look like really bad to justify it, to not take the action, right? So you're right. Just embrace it, allow it to be there, not believe it, and just take the action. Because I started
Well,
to
what if you
believe.
had to do less than that? So you've kind of done a three-step process there, like embrace it, allow it to be, and then take action. What if you didn't need to do those first steps? Like, what if you didn't even need to embrace it? What if you didn't even need to allow it to be there? Like, there's literally nothing to do about it.
So just ignore it.
No, that's also doing something. Don't even ignore it. Just take the action.
Cool.
Like when I'm lying in bed in the morning, and if I don't want to get up, I don't need to like motivate myself to get out of bed. I don't need to get over my laziness issues. I don't need to do anything. Get out of bed, right? Like there's nothing that I need to work on myself to before I can get out of bed.
So don't embrace it, don't even think about it, just do it.
Right. Like I guarantee you will make more progress if you actually just go and apply to a few jobs than you will trying to sort out your self-doubt issues because they're just made up. Like self-doubt is a concept, it's made up. Right?
So
It's
none
like
of
it's
it,
like motivation. You don't need motivation before you go and do something because, let's say there's something you enjoy. Like, do you enjoy playing video games?
of course, yeah, that's my favorite hobby.
Right? Do you need motivation before you play video games?
No, I just turn on the computer and start doing my thing.
Right. But when there's something that you don't do, you tell yourself you need motivation.
Yeah, definitely. I plan it out. I think about it too much, and then, you know, think of all the what ifs. But with gaming, I guess
Right.
I just play the game, not even think about what happens or what's going to happen.
Right. So it's a completely made up concept. It's completely made up that um, you need to motivate yourself before you do something. And it's the same thing. It's completely made up. You need to get over your self-doubt, or you need to believe in yourself before you take action. Like that is just simply not true. And if you look around at other successful people, they don't wait around to fix that stuff first. Right? I guarantee, like as you just take more action, if you do that, and the steps you take as you do that, you're simply going to be more. You're going to have more confidence through taking action. Right? That self belief that you think you need, like you'll have that as you take action. Like the first time I did a live coaching call, I think it was last year. I was a little bit nervous, but I didn't need to fix that before I did the live coaching. I just did it and I learned from it, and I did, and then did the next one. And I'm sure I'll learn things from this one. Whether I have self-doubt or I get nervous or anything really doesn't matter. And like today, I've been fine before I was nervous. I'm sure in the future I'll be nervous again, but it really doesn't make any difference about whether I take action or not. The only thing that determines results is the action that I take.
Kind of missed that point earlier when I was talking about what I need to do in order to deal with self-doubt, and you were saying that I don't need to do all those 3 steps of like embracing it and things like that. Just wondering if you can quickly, because I was trying to catch up in my head and the thing was breaking up, but if you can quickly go over that before I forget, which I won't forget, but still. You
Yeah,
said
like
just don't do it.
you were saying like, oh right, so what you're saying is, and I can't even remember you saying like, oh, I need to embrace it, I need to accept. You were just saying a list of things that you think you need to do,
Hmm.
right? And I'm saying, no, get your list of things you need to do and cross all of them out and replace it with one thing, which is apply for jobs. And if you do that one thing on your list, you will make far more progress in getting this part of your life handled than you will by dealing with any of the other things on your list.
Yeah, yeah, because I really want to stay in my field. I just thought, okay. Then I started thinking about it, and then I thought, okay, I guess I got to look at the options that I had before, which there was a sense of security in those jobs, and this was like a new horizon. So of course, with self-doubt, it definitely like worked itself in where I was thinking, nah, that's for someone else kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. You're right. It makes a lot more sense too. I should always think about what comes after the action, not before, which makes a lot more sense if you're following me, I guess. Because I always made the mistake of thinking, what if before the action, but I should always just take the action and learn from it, right? So, and all that, it's definitely clearing up my head a bit. I know it sounds so simple, just apply for jobs.
It is really, really simple. Like when you're overthinking something, it looks like you need a really, really complex answer to move forward, but you really don't. Life is very simple. We overcomplicate it by overthinking about it. That's the truth. And I'm the same as you in that. There's nothing special about me. And the more that you see through that, like I was king of overthinking, and the only thing that's changed is I've seen through that. Oh, that isn't helpful. And actually slowly moving across from overthinking into just taking action has made a huge difference in my life, and I know it's going to make a difference in yours. And I think you can see that. You can see that if you spend the next 3 days or the next week or 2 weeks really thinking about it, really trying to get over your self-doubt issues, maybe telling yourself some affirmations, looking at yourself in the mirror, meditating on it, all the rest of it, it's probably going to have less impact in the real world than it will be spending 2 weeks applying for jobs.
It's just the only reason I'm so pressured is because I have, like you probably know, I have brown parents and they're very like anal about what your status is. So like if I were to go back to security and all that, sure the money will be there, but the status won't. So my mom was like, you better stay in your field of work because that's what I paid for and that's what you studied for the last 2 years, right? So that's just another pressure that I got to deal with.
Well, who cares about that? Because you told me that you wanted to stay in this field.
I do. She just wants to make sure that I definitely do stay in this field. So, like, there's no other job that I can ever take, basically, because she doesn't want me to go backwards in any way. All right, so.
Well, why don't you deal with that once you've applied for jobs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you'd come into this coaching call and said, listen, I've been applying for jobs and I've been trying to do everything and I'm really struggling, that's a different conversation. But right now, like I don't even understand why you're talking about taking a security job or a manual labor job. You haven't even tried. You haven't even tried to get the job in the field that both you and your parents want. And it's not like I can't even see that being an issue. Like if you turn around and said, well, I want to go into this field, but my parents want me to be a banker, yeah, I can see there might be something to discuss there. But what you're telling me is there's a field that I really, really, really want to go into, and my parents are insisting I go into the field that I really, really, really want to go into.
I guess I was just thinking it's really hard to get in. That's what I was thinking. It's like, where do I start? Where do I go? It looked like I was climbing a mountain in my own head just before I even look and apply and send out my resume? Because it's
Well,
really hard.
do you know where to do that now, or do you want some coaching around that?
In terms of looking for places to apply, like I know places, I
For
know
jobs?
like I probably have all the resources in my head and actually give out those resources to people on where to apply. So it's just me getting out there and walking about and doing what I need to do and not being my worst enemy.
Did you watch the webinar that I did with Alicia Abate?
About the money?
Alicia Abate, when we talked about Korea, I recorded it a couple of months ago.
No, 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 I don't believe so.
What I would strongly recommend is that you check out that webinar. Alicia was the head of resourcing for a couple of very big organizations, and so she really knows what it takes to get promoted in your career, to get a new job, and just basically to do well. And a lot of the things that even I thought you needed to do aren't the things that get you hired. Um, and it's about an hour long. I would strongly suggest you check it out. I would say don't do that as an excuse to not apply, that you need to check that out first.
I
But I
mean,
would say as part of your job search, it's something that I would highly recommend you watch.
there was this one agency that I saw two job postings for, and I did apply, but I just never heard back. And there was a program assistant that they were hiring for, and I applied. I accidentally met their human resources in prison, and I don't know if she got a bad impression of me because I was looking at the other job applicants, and they were pretty well dressed, and they all had the university degrees, and I guess I did kind of apply for two jobs, but I just never got a call back. So I'm like, I guess I kind of just use that to like talk myself out of it and doing it again. So
And how many jobs are there in this helping field in your city that you theoretically are um, capable of, and you meet the minimum requirements?
I feel like I'll be capable if they just train me for it, just because I'm smart, I'm able-bodied, and I can do shit. But I do have a
Right. So
diploma.
roughly off the top of your head, I mean, how many of those jobs do you reckon are in your city? Is it two? Is it five? Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 100?
If I were to put a realistic number, minimum 50, I would say that I
Right.
can look
So
for.
you've applied for 4% of the jobs that you are capable and qualified to work on. Do you think that's a good indication of whether you can get a job in this field or not when you've applied for 4% of their jobs?
I mean, it's just when I read the applications, the job postings, it's like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, unless I was trained for it, I'll be able to do it. But then I guess I was just overthinking it and not really doing anything. So just talking myself out of it, basically, which is, I know, stupid.
So tomorrow, or actually it's early today, so what action are you going to take today from this kind of mini coaching session?
Well, you know what? I'm actually planning on looking at each posting, catering my resume towards that exact posting, and just keep sending out my resume. And there's a social service employment center in my neighborhood that actually has job postings and they actually do a lot of hiring. So I've been holding it off, but I can actually take my resume, go to them, let them know who I am, what my qualifications are, and then they can actually help me look for work in my own field, which, sounds so simple, but I just never done it till now. So
So I'm going to push you a little bit more. What are you going to do today?
today I'm actually gonna. Well, for me, it's late over here. The place that I was talking about is actually closed, I believe. But for today, I'm actually gonna go on like job posting websites and just actually look around and send them to my email. And then tomorrow, I'm planning on going to the employment agency and actually show them their postings and then show them my resume and then see what they can do for me in terms of the next step.
Cool.
So I feel like that's
We've
practical.
we've had a very short time. This is not a full coaching session, so um, has that been useful for you today? Have you got enough to proceed with?
Yeah, yeah. In terms of the self-doubt nonsense in my own head, that's definitely one big step forward. So thank you for listening to my long abstract story.
Cool. And I just asked that, everyone here is on the Powerful Men's group. Just can you leave a comment over the next day or two and let us know what you've done and how you're getting along?
Sure.
Great. Thanks,
Uh,
Sue.
yeah. I guess in the Powerful Men's Facebook group, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Will do.
Cool. So I'm gonna unmute, or Yayati, can you unmute yourself?
Yep, I've done it.
Okay, how you doing?
Super.
Great. And we're going to start jumping in with yourself. If anyone's got any questions, if anyone's got any comments on the side for Sue, please just do type them out so he can read them. And yeah, and if you've got any questions or you've got any comments while I coach Yayati, feel free to post them in the message function down the side. So Yayati, tell us what's going on with you. What would you like coaching around today?
I'd like some coaching around how do you tap into your inner wisdom. So there are times when you are able to do it, there are times when you're not able to do it. So there's an on phase and there's an off phase, which keeps on happening. So how do you keep it on all the time? How do you have access to the inner wisdom, to your intuition, whatever you may like to call it, all the time?
Okay.
How do you
And
make it a
just want to And I want to say it's like you're calling us from India right now, so it's kind of like the middle of the night, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so thanks for joining us, and I love your commitment of staying up late for this coaching call. I guess the first question I've got for you is, what does inner wisdom mean to you? Like, how would you describe inner wisdom?
Inner wisdom to me uh, means you are being guided to do whatever you're doing. Like suppose if I'm coaching someone, so I'm guided. I don't have a prepared list of things or a syllabus sort of thing wherein I can just follow the steps. I want to be guided. I want that it should be in a flow state. That is what my definition is. That, yep, this is what it is.
So, and I hear a lot about that. People talk about the flow state. So, is your question, how do I stay in the flow state all the time?
Not really. No. The question is how do you access it? So I don't know.
Well, I like to use the word gut feeling. That's always made more sense to me than inner wisdom. And for me, my experience has been it's been a process, and um, I don't always access it. I don't always know that I'm in line with wisdom. I'm in flow or anything else. But the more that I have, the more I've been aware of it, the more I become aware of it. Now, one thing that I did recently as part of my most recent journey was I did an immersion event for a few members of the Powerful Men's group in April this year. And the kind of subtitle of the immersion event was The Power of Silence. And what I really see is when I get really quiet in my head, and you know, we heard Sue talking earlier on, and I'm talking about you, Sue, by the way, right? Even though you're muted. Um, but Sue was very busy in his head, right? You could hear that. He had a lot going on. He had a lot of thinking going on. And the opposite of that is when you've not got too much going on in your head. And I find that as we tap into that silence and we kind of hang out there, we tend to get we get more. It's not like your inner wisdom isn't there, because I believe it's always there. Your gut is always there. Your common sense is always there. You know, you can call it different things. But what I find is that the more quiet we get, the clearer the signal gets. It's like when you've got one of those old radios and you're trying to tune it, and you go past it and you kind of come back, and then you keep twiddling it and you get a really clear signal. Well, the radio station's always being broadcast, right? There's always the broadcast coming through, but sometimes your dial's off. And that's like when you've got a busy mind, when you're overthinking, when you're overanalyzing things. But when you turn that, you know, when you get quiet, you're turning that dial, and you're getting rid of all the static, and then the signal starts to come through a lot clearer. You know, it's why a lot of people point to meditation. I don't meditate. I do see the value and the power of a quiet mind. I see the value and power of silence. You know, earlier on today, I was actually getting coached by a colleague of mine. We exchanged a coaching session. So I coached him last week, and he coached me. And I was talking about a situation that I was in at the moment. And we were talking about it, and we were kind of going round about it. And then I got to a stage where I was just like, and this coach asked me, he's like, you know, what's coming up for you right now? And I said, I just feel like going for a walk. And I kind of just put this issue to the side. I didn't need to solve there and then. And I went for, and he came with me. I said, do you want to come with me? And he said, sure. We carried on our coaching conversation. I just went for a walk just around my neighborhood for about 20 minutes. And it was a lovely, beautiful evening. I didn't wear a jacket. It was a lovely fresh air. I started to hear the birds singing, right? You could hear them tweeting away. And I kind of just dropped it all. And that was just so much better space to be in. But that's not something that I do. It's not like, oh, every time you get caught up, go for a walk. That just made sense to me when I got a bit quiet.
Right.
So people get confused. It's like, oh, right, I need a quiet mind. What do I do? Right? And they look for things to practice. Let me practice meditation. Right? Let me practice, you know, let me take action of going for a walk. Let me do this. Let me do that. But you don't need to go anywhere, because you're right here. Now, if it makes sense to you to go for a walk, go for a walk. Sometimes it makes sense to me to go for a walk. Sometimes it doesn't. Right? Sometimes it doesn't make any sense at all. Sometimes it's just like, do you know what? I'm overthinking things. I need a good night's sleep. I'm going to go to sleep. Sometimes it's like, stop overthinking things. Get on with it. Go and take the action that you know you need to take, which is what I was pointing Sue to. Stop overthinking it. Start applying for jobs. It's not the action you take, but it's quietening your mind. It's and not even doing that, but it's like becoming aware of it, and becoming aware that your mind is busy tends to have the effect of it quieting down.
Okay. So
have you ever experienced that yourself?
Yes. So the question here is, when you gave the example of the radio, that sometimes you just have to tune in. So what do you do when you're tuned out? There are times when the signal, when you feel that, okay, you are connected, you are there, but sometimes you're just off. So how to again get tuned in? It could be through a walk. Okay, this is one idea which I got, or it could be something which would come up in that moment. But what if it does not show up? What if there are times when you feel lost and you are that goes on for an extended period of time, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours? Is there any doing required at that point of time?
I've never found doing anything helpful, right? Like when I come at it from that point of view, because the thing is, your mind will settle eventually unless you do something about it. So it's not about doing something, it's about stopping doing something, right? Like when I'm caught up, it's because I'm overthinking. Now I can't
Oh,
stop thinking because if you've ever tried to stop thinking, it's really, really hard to do. But
right.
what I know is eventually my mind will settle, and at least don't add fuel to the fire. It doesn't make sense to add more thinking to an already busy mind,
Mm,
right? Now, sometimes that will mean in a minute or a few seconds my mind will clear. Sometimes it will take a few hours. Sometimes it will take a few days. But it will settle. There's nothing you need to do about that.
mm,
So there's no idea around, like, I really don't want people to get the impression that here a list of 10 things you can do, one of them is going for a walk. No, what I'm saying is when your mind quiets down, that might just seem like a good idea. But
right.
you'll know it because it's from in here as opposed to over here,
Mm,
right? So your
right.
mind will always settle, your wisdom will always show up. That's the way the system is designed. It's a
Mm,
self-correcting system. Right? If it wasn't a self-correcting system, you would still be pissed off when the child in the playground stole your toy, or whatever, when you were a child, when you were very young. But you get over things, right?
right.
Our mind does self-correct. There's so many things that you've been upset about in your life that you're no longer upset about,
Right.
right? It's the mind. That's the way the mind works. It's self-correcting. So there's
Right.
nothing you need to really do about that. But the thing is that people don't recognize is they're often innocently trying to do a lot to fix the mind,
Mm,
right? So the mind is a self-correcting mechanism, and unknowingly, rather than letting it do its job and naturally self-correct, we're trying to fiddle with it, and in fiddling with it, we make things worse than they are.
mm. Okay. So there's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. You just have to be and allow the mind to do its job, which is it will self-correct itself. That's what you're saying, and that is what it does. Okay. So that means that everything that we experience is created by thought, which we have in our head, right? Hmm?
Yeah, and when we say thought, what I'm not saying is your thinking. I'm not even saying just your conscious thinking. I'm when we say thought, we mean all mental activity. Your
Right.
experience is created through that mental activity. If you didn't have any mental activity, you wouldn't be experiencing life.
Right. Right. So how does laziness fit into this equation? So if we are, uh, yeah,
Well, what do you mean by laziness?
when you don't feel like doing anything, when you know you have to do something, the objective is clear, or what is to, you know what you have to do, but still you don't do it.
See, that's not laziness to me. What you're describing is a feeling, right?
Hmm.
So you think you need to do something, you have a feeling that you don't want to do it,
Mm.
and then the action is like these are separate things, right? So there is mental activity happening. The mental activity gets reflected in a feeling. So the feeling is, oh, I can't be bothered to do that.
Mm.
You have a choice. From that point, you have a choice. Do I take the action anyway, or do I not take the action?
Mm.
You have that choice. Now, a lot of the times, people feel like, oh, I don't want to do that. They don't want to do the thing that's on their to-do list or whatever. Not because of wisdom, but because they're not in a clear head. They're feeling like procrastinating or whatever else. And
Mm.
then what they do is they don't take the action that they know they should take because they believe the feeling, right? But we've all had experiences. If anyone's gone to the gym, there's always been a time where you don't feel like going to the gym,
Yes.
and it looks like what does a feeling look like? The feeling looks like it's telling you don't go to the gym because you're not going to enjoy it,
Yeah,
and
but when
yet
doing
anyone's
it,
gone.
yes, I've had that feeling.
Right, like you go to the gym and you enjoy it. So
Yes.
you've had lots of reference experiences telling you that feelings aren't a really good indicator of what action you should take.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once you start to really see that, that's when your behavior will change. You don't need to change the behavior, you just need to see how the mind works. Because if you see how the mind works, you won't get caught out by, oh, I feel lazy, oh, I feel bored, oh, I feel like I've got self-doubt, oh, I feel nervous. These won't determine what action you take. And we see this in the real world. We see people that we admire, our heroes, people who do great things, people who we're inspired by, are the ones, not that they don't have any self-doubt, not the ones that don't have insecurities or nervousness, but the ones that take action anyway. Right? Now, if we don't realize that the feelings are a really bad indicator of the future, it looks like that's really brave. But when we see that feelings are a really bad indicator of what action we should take, it just makes common sense to take the action that we want to take.
Right. Okay, so here's a question which is coming in my mind. And if there's nothing for us to do, then why even bother taking action?
Well, when I say there's nothing for us to do, and it's a great question, and it helps me clarify, I'm talking about there's nothing for us to do on the level of our mind, on the level of our thinking. So when I was coaching Sue, great question. When I was coaching Sue, when I'm saying you don't need to do anything, I'm not saying he doesn't need to take action. Yeah, take action, go and apply for jobs, but you don't need to do anything on in the level of your mind. I need to get over my self-doubt. I need to motivate myself. I need to not be insecure. That's not required. And it's the same thing with laziness, right? Or procrastination.
Right.
You don't need to fix that in here because that's a self-correcting mechanism. But in the real world, if you want to go and take some action, like if you want to go and achieve something, it makes sense to take some action, right? Like
Right.
if you want to mow your lawn, you probably, I don't know if you have that in India, but if you want to go and cut the grass in the UK, right? It the grass doesn't care. It doesn't matter whether you want to do it or not want to do it.
Right.
The grass will get cut if you go and cut the grass,
Hmm.
right? If you want to, get into great shape and you want to go to the gym, your body doesn't care what you think, right? If you go to the gym and work out, you'll get in shape. If you sit at home and eat donuts, you won't get in shape. Like that's the bottom line. And what I'm talking about is when you get an appreciation for how the mind works and what your feelings are telling you, and they aren't telling you about whether you should take action or not, it makes it a lot easier just to go and take the action you know that you should do anyway to get the result that you want to get. No one's forcing you to do it. Like I don't care whether if you're if you're a bit big and overweight or you've got a six-pack body. But what I would say as a coach is, well, what do you want? Okay, if this is what you want, then these are take these actions. And what's stopping you from taking those actions is a misunderstanding around what your feeling is telling you, right? When you're feeling bored, that isn't telling you that the activity you're doing is a boring activity. Like for me, it used to look like that with spreadsheets. Oh, spreadsheets are boring, numbers are boring. And there are lots and lots of people, including my fiance, who love spreadsheets. They love getting involved in numbers. And what I've found just how useful they are. And now, shock horror, I use them more than I used to. I used to do everything on paper. And now I see, oh, there's value in doing it on a computer because it's saved. I don't have to do it all over again when I want to change something. I can do some formulas and stuff. It makes a lot more sense.
Okay.
So we've all got our reference experiences of where we've had a feeling not to do something because it looked And in that moment, it looked like, oh, if I do that, if we're really honest, if I do that, I'm going to feel worse. That's what it looks like our feeling is telling us. And we've all had experiences of doing the thing despite feeling a certain way and it turning out really, really good.
Right. So the crux is not to trust the feeling and do the action. Take the action anyway.
Right.
Right. Okay. Uh, Here's a question which I asked Michael Neal on his wall, but I did not. I mean, he mentioned that the answer to this question in his some of his books. So I'm going to ask that question to you. So when we say that it's all in the mind, where is the mind? If we say here we have the brain here, where is the mind?
That's a great question. I really don't know. I couldn't tell you. I can tell you what I think, but I don't know. Um, You're right. The brain here, the physical brain is here. Where's the mind?
Yes.
I have no idea. And I don't want to say, like I don't want to say, oh well, actually it's in between your second and third vertebra. It's slightly off to the left. I really don't know. The mind to me is a formless thing.
Hmm.
So and again, words are imperfect, so it all depends on your definition, right, of what the mind is. Um, But to me, the mind is a really formless thing. Now we tend to associate mind with brain, but they are different things, right?
Right.
And again, I'm a three principles coach. For people who don't know what that is, it's a certain kind of modality, and in a three principles language, the mind is the formless energy behind life. Now, where the hell is that stored, right? I don't know.
Hmm.
Does it really matter? To me, no, it does. It doesn't. It doesn't stop me, having a great life and appreciating that energy.
Okay. I also had the pretty much same definition, but I mean, based on my understanding, but I wanted some more clarity around it. So we keep on hearing that this is in my mind, this is in my mind, but then where is it? So when we ask that, there's there's no location as such, no physical location.
Yeah, and one thing I would say is, you sent me a message before this coaching thing, which was, you really wanted to get a deeper understanding around wisdom and tapping into your wisdom, tapping into your inner guidance system, trusting your gut more,
Hmm.
this sort of thing. And I would say you're not going to get there through intellectual understanding. And this is coming from a guy who was like I said, I was the king overthinker. I used to really pride myself on my intellectual ability.
Hmm.
But you're not going to get there through that. You're not going to get there through that intellectual um, understanding or capability. It doesn't work that way, right? You will get there through a quieter mind, and that was really difficult for me to get at the beginning because I like to understand things. I like to intellectually get involved with things, but when and this is why I'm not trying to tell people just to be dummies, right? Like I really value people's intelligence. But when you start to try and think about things, you're only going to come up with what you already know.
Right.
You're not going to have any fresh new thoughts. You're not going to have fresh new insights. And what tends to happen is, you hear me or you read a book or you hear certain things, you talk to other coaches, and some things will go in, and then just kind of let it stew. Like you're making some food, just put the ingredients in. You don't eat it straight away. You let it settle. That's what I
Right.
find with this. Just let it stew, and don't overthink it, and let things bubble up for you. Let things come up for you. That's what will make more sense. And I know I've learned a lot in the last 4 years, and kind of even before then, but it's certainly the last 4 years as I've been coaching. And some of the things I've learned have been through an intellectual understanding, but I would say the vast, vast, vast majority of things that I've learned haven't been intellectually. They've been through insights and ahas, and sometimes when I'm doing something totally random that's got nothing to do with coaching, something will just click. Like, oh, okay, yeah, now all of a sudden, when I'm not thinking about it. And there's so many examples of that in so many different fields of people having the answers to really complex, problems at the moments when they're not thinking about solving the problem.
Hmm. Okay.
If as anyone else, like I'm just looking at time, we've got just a few minutes left, and I want to honor the time that everyone's got to really finish on time. Does anyone else have any questions? If you've got any comments or thoughts, feel free to post them on the side. We're glad to try and see if we can squeeze one in before the end. Sue, you asked a question which was, how do you tell the difference between wisdom and random thoughts? And I could talk for a very long time about that, but I'll try and give a quick answer. And I don't know if I'm answering the question or not, but I wondered that myself as well before. And one of the things that I found is, when I ask myself, is this wisdom or is this, just random thinking? If I'm thinking that, it's not wisdom. Because when it's wisdom, I know. When it's my gut, I just know, right? So if you're thinking that's a really good indication that it's not. And also the other thing is, when it looks really urgent that I need to know, like I need to make a decision right now, when I slow down, most of the time I don't need to make a decision at that moment. So I do a relationship series. One of the things I say on there is, like, don't make a really big relationship decision when you're not thinking clearly. Don't make a really big relationship decision when you're overthinking. Don't make a really big relationship decision when you're really pissed off or upset with your partner. That doesn't make sense, right? And that's what people do. That's what I used to do. So let your wisdom emerge. When it does, you'll just know. It kind of comes with a different feeling. And so if it doesn't come with that feeling, it's not wisdom.
Yeah, when you mentioned this is something which is coming up. So if you're asking a master, like, this is a Zen story, I think. So a student goes to a master and he asks, "Am I enlightened?" So if you're asking that, you're not, because you'll know when you'll know. If you are, you'll just know it. So I think the same analogy applies to your wisdom and random thoughts.
Cool.
If you're questioning its wisdom, well, probably it's not.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to unmute Sue. I can't. If Sue, you can unmute yourself. Great to have you on here. Was this helpful to you guys? Is this something worthwhile? Because this was an experiment for me today.
Yeah. I was just thinking about how, like, having a quiet mind is, like, you really gotta learn to trust yourself.
And Yayati, did you get stuff from listening to me coach Sue?
Yes, I did.
Great. Bjorn, thank you very much. Sorry, go on.
One of the fundamental thing which I observed is you were just questioning his thinking. Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? That was the one thing I wrote that down in my diary. That you just need to question, and the truth will just come up.
Bjorn commented that this was a very well spent hour. Thank you very much. If anyone else has got any comments, please post them on the side. If people like this, if this has been helpful, I'm happy to repeat it. Maybe next month we can have a couple of other people on the webinar and do this again. So, but thank you both for being brave and being willing to be on this live coaching experience with me. Like I said, it's the first time I've done it for the Powerful Men's Group. I really enjoyed myself. I hope you guys found it useful, and I'll see people on the next webinar.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Ankush. Thank you for the coaching. I appreciate it.